Welcome to the Hidden Potential Podcast. I'm your host, Homer Hargrove. And in this episode, our title today is Find Your Niche, Learning How to Build Your Specialty. In today's episode, we're going to learn about how to find what your niche is when it comes to ministry. And we're going to talk about practical ways to discover what that niche may be. We're going to talk about how to grow in that specialty once it's found. And we're also going to learn to talk about how to brand your niche in ministry. Every single week, we come out with a new episode to be able to help you tap into your hidden potential. We do that by giving you practical and mental tools to be able to help you apply in your organization and ministry. Let's go ahead and get started with a big thought, and that is one of the biggest mistakes that ministers and leaders make is making their desired audience too broad. If you try to reach everyone, you'll often reach no one. But if you try to reach someone, you'll feel like you're reaching everyone. This all boils down into finding out what your niche of expertise is in. When you find out who your type of message is best suited for, you will be able to focus on what specific type of audience and you'll be able to reach them in a way that is truly genuine. And rather than spreading your message in hard to grow places, you will be planting your seed in soil that's primed to bear fruit. So let's get started about finding out what your specialty is. The first thing that you have to do is narrow down your target audience. I know that your message is probably for everybody, but there are certain types of people that will respond better to your message in a way that others won't. Focusing on those people will make you more effective in your message and help you to bring about more ability to reach other people in the future. To find out your niche, you have to really narrow down two things about yourself and your message. That is your experience and your excitement. Now, before getting into this, I want to really make it abundantly clear what I'm saying. I know that for most of you who listen to this podcast, you're primed in ministry. And so the idea of thinking, well, how is the gospel not for some people and only certain people? Let me be more clear that how you go about presenting the gospel to certain people is different. It's just like in the book of Corinthians when Paul says when he's with the Jews, he acts like a Jew. When he's with the Gentiles, he acts like a Gentile. And we see in Scripture that Paul was a lot better at reaching Gentiles than Jews. And it's a simple example to what I'm talking about. It's finding out who your specialty is. And for me, there's like a time where I thought that youth ministry was my specialty. But even though I do have a lot of experience in youth ministry, I had a lot of experience of as far as like different experiences in my adolescence that I was able to applicably use within the message to reach different kids and different, that were doing some of the same things I had done. But when it came to like this idea of youth ministry, it was something that I liked to do, that I had great experience in, but I wasn't as excited as I used to be. Now, change that over to like recovery. How I work with people in recovery is different than the way that I would reach people in just like traditional church. If I am with people in recovery, I will often use like language that people in recovery use. I'll use terms like my higher power. It's like this idea that how I talk and present that message, I've found that I am able to reach people in recovery a lot better than your average Christian. It's like this little niche that I found where I have experience in. I'm in recovery myself. I had a history of drugs and alcohol. And so I have this experience, this lived experience. I've been sober now for over 10 years. So I have this experience and it gets me excited to reach people who are on this bridge of life change that they're going, especially people who have recognized addiction. I get really excited about this big moment for them to find God in the moments of one of the biggest changes of their life. It makes me genuinely excited. So again, I talk to people in recovery differently than I would talk to a group of just, like church members at a Baptist church. It's just learning what your niche is like that. Again, all people need the gospel, but who are you going to reach with the gospel? Who are you specifically going to reach? And could your niche change over the years? Yeah, of course. But let's just start somewhere. Maybe it's as broad as youth. Maybe you're narrowing down your niche to this this target audience of youth, maybe specifically high schoolers, or maybe you feel specifically middle schoolers. Like, try to get as narrow as possible when you're thinking about this target audience and zone in on that. And if need be, you could even, narrow it down further. Is it just all high school students, or maybe you find that you are more excited to reach better to the lower class high school students, or maybe you work a lot better and have experience with upper class, and I'm talking about economic status. Maybe you're able to reach like prep kids like no one else does, and you're able to, maybe you have experienced that. You're a prep kid and you know what it was like to have parents not as involved in your life. They were working, and all that comes with it. You have that recognized experience that goes with that niche. Now, another thing about breaking down experience and excitement, in order to become this expert in this niche, you have to experience the practice. This is the first thing to come to terms with because it requires you to be honest with yourself. For example, you may be excited about parenting, but if you don't have experience in parenting, your message doesn't really have its own weight. It doesn't have its own testing of being a parent and this practical application. And your audience may not trust you because of that lack of experience. To find your niche, you need to narrow down to your lived experiences. Again, with youth ministry, I was doing that for 10 years. I was in youth ministry for 10 years before I started branching out into recovery, but I had a lot of experience to go with it. And now transitioning to recovery, I've now been in it for multiple years, and I'm in recovery myself. It's this lived experience. Now talking about your excitement, the other side of this coin is finding out what makes you excited. Excitement is synonymous with passion. And if you're not passionate about what it is that you talk about or who you're talking about it with, then you will stain your message and you will stain your reputation. You have to find something that really burdens your heart and move from there. As another thing that gets me excited is like young leadership. I don't really get as excited for older leadership. I get excited about a young leader who's just starting out and trying to navigate this path similar to how it was for me. And it's not just broad leadership. I'm narrowing it down as much as I can, and it gets me genuinely excited. I like doing this podcast. I don't do it because I have to. I do it because I really want to. When I go to recovery centers, I don't just do it because I have to. I do it because I truly enjoy doing it. Same thing goes for church. It's that excitement to where it doesn't even feel like a job for you because you're passionate about it. Y'all dig what I'm saying? So again, your specialty should combine both your experience and your excitement. Today's episode is brought to you by Gravetop Designs online store. Visit gravetopdesigns.com/shop to find custom-made Christian clothing that's edgy and actually looks good. I crafted all of the designs myself, so I'd love to hear your feedback and tell me what you think. Share your next purchase on Instagram and tag Gravetop Designs for a chance to get 10% off your next order. Shop today, help support this channel. Again, that's gravetopdesigns.com/shop. Now, let's go on to number 2, which is get better. Once you get your niche audience and message down, you need to get better at it. Remember that you're trying to get better at getting your message across and it actually being received. You need to reevaluate what your message is and how you deliver it. Then you need to zone in on how to best reach your new target audience and get creative on how to reach out to them rather than expecting them to reach out to you. So using recovery as an example. Once I kind of realized this niche of recovery that I started dabbling into years ago, it took me a minute to kind of reevaluate how I would deliver the messages that I deliver. At first, I tried just doing the same kind of Sunday message and sharing it with people who are going through recovery. And while it had its own effectiveness, I was able to be exponentially more effective once I started creating messages catered to people who were in recovery. They were able to really identify with parts of my message much more once I catered the message to better fit that audience. Y'all dig what I'm saying? And when I say to get creative on how to reach out to them rather than expecting them to reach out to you, it's really breaking this American church culture stigma to where we think that the church is this evangelical place. The building of church is not necessarily evangelical. It is a place where believers are expected to go. And it's just by happenstance that because of how prominent Christianity is known in our culture, that people go to church to find God too. But it's really not meant for that. It is meant to be a place of building up of believers. And so you cannot expect yourself to find this niche and just put on a website what your niche is and put it on your Instagram what you're specialized in and expect people to just come bowing down to you saying, oh, tell me your ways. You have to get creative on how you reach those people. I literally go into recovery centers and meet with groups of people who are detoxing. Okay, I don't expect them to ever step foot in my church. I go to them. Even when I was a youth pastor, I didn't just expect the high school students to go. I would literally get our team and go on the sidewalk where these kids would walk on their way home from school, to where we weren't necessarily on campus, so they couldn't tell us to leave. And we would just stand out there with flyers and cold Capri Suns and hand them out free to students as they're walking home. It was like our effort to try to reach them rather than expecting them to come to us. Again, you need to get better at your message, get better at your dialogue and how you deliver it, and get better on how you reach this specific niche. Remember, you're trying to reach somebody. You're trying to reach one person, and it'll feel like you're reaching everyone once you do that. And finally, be clearly seen. One of the last things that you need to do, and this needs to be done after you do the first two, is that you need to make it abundantly clear what your specialty is. This is actually easier said than done, but the goal is for people to hear of you or see your Instagram, whatever it is, and know exactly what problem you solve and who you solve, who your message is for. This is, in a sense, building your ministry brand, but you should see it more so as you becoming a specific type of lighthouse for your niche of people, your audience, to see and know exactly where to dock their ship and know exactly where to go. As an example, for our church is called Gravetop Church. In itself, it's a niche just because of its name. But the very first thing that you see on our website is to bring people from death to life. And as many ways you can interpret that, there's this general understanding that people who feel dead in their lives come to our church and they find life. And there's so much more to our name with that, but it's this idea of making it abundantly clear of what it is that you do. Even for this podcast, my goal is to help people tap into their hidden potential as leaders. See, it's like this, it's trying to make it as clear as possible that it's like within even that, the title of this podcast is specifically for aspiring young leaders. Can more seasoned leaders benefit from this podcast? Yeah, sure. But it's specifically for young and aspiring leaders. So again, make whatever it is your ministry brand is abundantly clear. Keep in mind that this is not because doing this will not make people just flock to you. But when you reach out to the people, like we talked about in step 2 and getting better at that, when they go to investigate you and look on your social media, look on the gram, look on whatever your feeds are, looking on your website, they're going to see exactly what it is that you do. And when you want it to be where they look at your website, they'll look at whatever, and they feel like you are an answer to their problems by what it shows. Y'all dig what I'm saying? Be clearly seen. Now let's end with 3 takeaways. That is, number 1, narrow down your specialty by combining what gets you excited and what you have experience in. And I can't stress experience enough. There's a lot of misguided leaders that believe that they're experts in things that they don't have any experience in, and they end up making themselves out to look foolish. you need experience whatever you want to have a specialty in. Number 2, once you labeled your niche, examine and change your language and strategy to better reach those specific people. And number 3, work on your ministry brand and create a mission statement that clearly and quickly shows what problem you solve and for what people. I hope that this was edifying for your leadership and that made a difference in your life. Can you do me a favor? Can you go and leave a rating and review for this podcast? It really helped me out and help others be able to see this show in their feed. Until next time, have a great life.